Hello, art teachers, and thank you so much for joining us for our little conference of sharing right here in our Facebook page. My name is Dr. Sarah Ackerman, and I'm so excited to be talking to you about joining the tech effort, best practices for shifting to an online mindset. Again, my name is Sarah Ackerman, and I'm coming to you today with a broad range of experiences from teaching both face-to-face to online classroom situations. And I've worked with everyone from kindergarten through adults, and I've worked in various different situations when it comes to tech access. So I've worked with no tech, some tech, and all tech. And I'm excited to use that experience and share out some of my strategies with you today. I'm also really enthused to be a part of this particular group, the Online Art Teachers K-12 Facebook group. Since joining the effort with Dr. Trina Harlow, I have been overwhelmed in a wonderfully positive way of the response from you, the art educators out there, in offering up your ideas and your strategies and pulling best practices from one another. What an amazing community. In addition to this little video rundown of my session, I'm also going to be linking a newsletter for you. And within this newsletter, which aligns with my slides here in this presentation, I'm including tons of links for you to take my recommendations here, but actually put them into practice with some examples and references galore. So I recommend while you watch along here to open up that newsletter so that you can see some of the tangible things we've been sharing. My goals today are to share my top 6 strategies for shifting to an online mindset. And I'm pulling again from experience working K-12 in a variety of different tech situations. Along the way, as I go through those top 6 recommendations, I'm going to be sharing resources, tips, and tricks, and I'm going to sneak in some meaningful ideas for students when it comes to art making, mindfulness exercises, etc. And of course, at the end, I'm going to be offering my ongoing support, not only in the chat box below this video, but moving forward in our Facebook page, but then also open myself up to questions personally and within group settings. So let's dive into those top 6 recommendations. My number 1 recommendation for shifting to an online mindset is thinking through instructor presence. Think about it. Your students are used to seeing you on a daily or weekly basis, physically seeing you and their peers. And they're going to miss that interaction, whether you believe it or not. So one thing that I do often, regularly in my online classroom situations is I humanize myself because I know my students want to hear from me as much as possible. We're going to talk about course content in a little bit. This is in addition to the regular course content that you're going to create for your now online students. What I have pictured here on the slide are some stills of my weekly updates for students. I've been teaching an online course since the start of the semester, and I create these quick, roughly around 5-minute video updates of me saying hi to my students, running through the expectations for that particular week, and humanizing myself. These are quick videos. I usually give myself a 2-take limit, if that. They don't have to be perfect because let's face it, we aren't perfect in the classroom. Students, they like seeing you, they want to see you, and this is a great way to connect with students on a regular basis during this unknown period. The equipment that I'm using for my videos, whether they're my update videos or as I'll talk about some of my other more formal videos, I don't have super impressive equipment. Honestly, a lot of the videos that I'm creating for my students are over my computer. And in the supplement, you'll see a lot of links to different free services that you can use. I'm a Mac person and I'm just creating my videos with QuickTime and uploading them to the online site that's hosting my classroom content. But if I'm, say, creating a demonstration video, I do work with an iPad or my iPhone on a tripod so I can angle down on my hands when I'm creating videotapes. But to be honest, I didn't always have this level of equipment. I've done my fair share of jerry-rigging my phone on a stack of books face down so that I can create a video or a demonstration of some sort. You don't have to create anything super sophisticated. As long as students can hear from you, they can see what you're doing, that is going to go a mile with your students. Number 2 is real world application. I recommend when you're sitting down and looking at your previously wonderfully crafted curriculum that you think about the non-negotiables. What are the things in your curriculum that you still want students to develop when it comes to creative skills, observation skills, conversational skills? Think about ways to keep those non-negotiables so that students, when they do eventually return to you, they're in a good place when it comes to very basic things and also concepts that you want them to explore. As you're working and sitting down to your curriculum, also think about ways that you can incorporate in small ways the contemporary conversation around the virus. In the supplement, I include links to a variety of contemporary artists that are doing really interesting things in response to this time that we're in right now, from graffiti artists to industrial designers designing masks. There's some really interesting things that you can share with students to get them conversing about what's going on in the here and now. At the same time, while you're thinking about bringing in interesting artists and interesting content, think about the actual art making activities that you're engaging students within. My current online class, it's for art teachers, but it's actually a museum studies class. So my students aren't typically making a lot of art, but I've actually incorporated a weekly art making or mindfulness activity for my students, knowing the additional stressors that are going on in their lives. And this is something I would recommend for any teacher, especially those of you teaching K through 12. Think about it. If you're a middle school or a high school teacher, students have the opportunity to benefit from a passing period where they physically move from subject to subject. They talk to their friends. They blow off some steam. They might not be doing that for themselves at home. They might be moving from online class to online class without that needed decompression time. And so an activity like Constellating the Unconscious is a quick little activity that can get students settled into a creative mindset. It's quick, it's reflective in nature as well, and can shift them into the mindset that you want them to be in. I created the cover art for my slide presentation through a Constellating the Unconscious activity. I share the specific directions in the resource, but let me run through them here. You start out by taking a sheet of paper, or I create mine on my iPad actually, and create a series of 10 to 20 dots on the surface. And you just place those dots wherever you like. And then you constellate them. You start with a home dot and you just start connecting dots until you get back to your home dot. Once you create this sort of image, I recommend putting it on the ground, walking around it, looking for hidden shapes, very much like if you were looking for constellations in the sky. And then you start to fill in those shapes. Now for me, a lot of my drawings, I do this almost every other day. A lot of my drawings, what comes out of it are things that I'm thinking about in that moment, from online teaching to the virus to art making. And this might be a really important step for your students to kind of get out some emotions and feelings about what they're going through. And depending on how in depth you want to take this, students can add color, they can add detail, but this sort of activity is quick, it's meaningful, but it can also help manage that stress that students might be feeling, not actually physically transitioning from subject to subject. Number 3, my hot tip for shifting to an online mindset is to build in preparation for online learning. You may be right there with your students where this is a totally new thing. Using a platform or using a school website to deliver online learning to students. And you're not only teaching your subject now, you're teaching students how to learn with this new setup. So being transparent and helping students understand how you're going to deliver course content is really important. When I'm designing my online course content, I take a sandwich approach. I think of how I want to build each week of content or each day of content, and I try to sandwich that content in a meaningful way and using an equation that I keep going throughout the rest of the class. So in each of my modules, they're organized the same exact way. Students will open up a module folder and they will see an overview from me. They then get step-by-step directions. I literally number the steps. Step 1, look here. Step 2, do this. Step 3, create this, and so on. And then I always have an end of week checklist. This sort of organization is nice not only for students, but for the guardians at home. They can see a consistent outline. They can take a look at that overview and also the checklist to kind of help their child move along with you in the course content. Here, I'm going to play a little video tour of one of my courses that I'm facilitating in the moment. At the University of Missouri St. Louis, we are a Canvas school, but I've worked with all sorts of learning management systems, including Schoology, Blackboard, D2L. I've also worked with Google Classroom. And for the most part, you can do very similar things across the platforms. The name of the game is creating content, sharing content, and getting students to engage with that content. So the first page is really my course syllabus. Right now we're in my module page, and you can see that every week I have a folder for students with that sandwich setup that I talked about. I always have a weekly overview, I always have a weekly checklist, and then I number the steps in between. The nice thing about using an LMS like Canvas or even Google Classroom is you can keep students in one place and they literally work through the steps. So they're not running all over the internet trying to find things. My courses, I will often have a combination of videos from me and also other professionals. Your classes, it might just be videos of you, and that's okay. But you can link to wonderful resources. You can include directions, step-by-step directions for web quests and other things that you would like your students to create. And pretty soon you're going to get a glimpse into what a discussion board looks like for one of my classes. Think about it. And we're going to talk about student engagement in a little bit, but students, they not only need to hear from you, but they need to hear from their peers as well. When students submit work in my classes, it's totally open and transparent. So I see the work of everyone and everyone else sees everyone's work. That way they can have conversations about the work that one another is creating. And it creates, some sense of community within a discussion board. So this is a little glimpse. I'll let the video continue for a little bit more so you can get a sense of what that discussion board looks like. Here we go. And I lay out expectations and whatnot, and you can do something very similarly in any LMS that you're working with. Number 4 is clear expectations. In addition to laying out every single step of course content, it's also really important to communicate to students and families how you want them to engage with each other, not just the content, but each other in the online classroom setting. When we're face to face with students and we see some interesting behavior, we can address it right away. I'm not going to lie, after a little while, students might get super comfortable with posting in an online setting. They may actually forget that you, the real human you, is on the other side of the computer screen, as well as peers. So sometimes we have to remind students of how to interact with one another. I suggest creating some netiquette language for your online classroom. Here's an infographic that I came across that's really nice and interesting, and I think would work great with younger students. In the supplement attached, I provide links to some other language that you're welcome to pull from to just set clear expectations for how you want students to engage with you and one another in the online classroom space. Tip number 5 for shifting to an online mindset: prompt feedback. In addition to humanizing yourself through weekly or every couple of days of video, students need to feel like you are indeed looking at the work that you're contributing. And I know from my experience teaching K through 12, that can feel really overwhelming for a K-12 educator shifting to an online mindset. I'm not saying that you have to respond to every single student piece, but find systems that will work for you, where if you are imagining yourself in the position of an individual student, that they feel connected to you. So something I like to do, I keep an informal tally on a piece of paper for every class that I teach. And on that tally, I know if I've responded to an individual discussion board post from a student or if I haven't that week. And over the course of the next couple of weeks together, I ensure by checking my tally system that students get an even amount of Dr. Ackermann in the class. Now, students that might not get that one-on-one direct feedback from me any given week, I do still address by creating video updates where I talk about the work as a whole. As everyone's artwork is evolving, I make comment on particular students within that video, and that allows me to touch base with more students at once. And then number 6 to consider is student engagement. In a lot of ways, the tips that I've shared, you're going to be humanizing yourself and making sure that your course content is clear as day and easy for students and guardians and family members to navigate. Something else to consider is how do you get students interacting with each other? I mentioned that my students submit their assignments via discussion board, so everyone sees everything. This would be a really helpful way to continue to help students feel connected, whereas otherwise they're very isolated in their home environments. Putting things publicly up in an LMS where students are still safe is a wonderful way for helping bridge that gap. Now, this was a very quick run through of my top 6 strategies for connecting with students online. Again, check out the supplemental. There I have tons of links and additional resources that will help you when you're addressing each of these 6 things. And I also want to emphasize that we will continue to support through our online Facebook group. It's been a wonderful way to build community, but also share ideas. Feel free to drop specific questions or comments in the Facebook thread for this session, but also know that I am an open book. I am offering myself as a support, as someone to bounce ideas off of regularly. Feel free to reach out to me over social media or email. I'm here for you, and I know this whole group is here for you. Together, we art better. Thanks, everybody, for watching.